What does it look like to retire with $50,000 a year of income? Well, that's exactly what we're going to look at here. We'll go through some specific examples, and I will leave some resources in the description that you can use to calculate your own numbers to figure out exactly how much you might need and what it might look like. I'm Justin Pritchard, and I help people plan for retirement. So let's start with a basic example of a single person, and if you are in a coupled household, then you can update these numbers for your needs. The median annual income for a household that's made up of over 65-year-olds is just under $50,000 a year. So if you're wondering if it's possible to retire on that, the answer is that a lot of people do it. In fact, the median is the one that's in the middle when you line up all of the responses from biggest to smallest, and so roughly half of all households are living on less. Of course, in those coastal cities or higher cost areas, the money doesn't go as far. But I can tell you that there are people in those areas who live on that much. In fact, I have clients who live in metropolitan areas who are living on less than $50,000 a year. That data, by the way, comes from the Census Bureau. So how much money will you need to generate that type of income? Your retirement income is a combination of any income you get from pensions and Social Security and any other sources, plus any withdrawals you take from your retirement savings. So that might be IRAs, 401ks, TSP, etc. Your Social Security or other fixed income sources make a base of income, and then whatever you need on top of that is the gap you need to fill from your withdrawals. The average Social Security benefit is $18,000 a year, or around $1,500 per month. But of course, the amount you get depends on several factors like your earnings history and how old you are when you claim benefits and other factors. The Social Security Administration has a handy quick calculator and lots of other tools that can help you estimate what your benefit might look like. So if we say that you're 61 years old today and your current earnings are $50,000, it'll tell us that at your full retirement age, you might get about $1,600 per month, so that's just above average. But if we update that to show a worker who's earning $85,000 in the current year, and they're again not necessarily going to take benefits right away, that benefit at full retirement age gets to be quite a bit bigger. And if you want to play with these numbers, again, you can find this information in the description below, and then you can even customize things. So they're making certain assumptions about how much your income grew over time, but you can update that and you can say, you know what, in this year I didn't work for a couple years, and then in that year I had a really good year of earnings. Ultimately, you can make this customized and closer to your reality. Let's assume you're going to get this $2,300 or so, and we multiply that by 12 months, so your total income for the year is around $28,000. If that's the case, the amount you're going to need to withdraw per year is around $22,000. So how much do you need saved up in retirement savings and investments? This is a calculator you can get to from the description, and it's going to show our $50,000 of desired income in retirement. We've got the Social Security benefit, so the amount we need to get out of income from withdrawals is shown here around $22,000. Now, we need to make some assumptions. You're always predicting the future when it comes to retirement, and you can't do that perfectly, but what you can do is make some educated guesses. And what we're going to do is try and figure out what's an inflation-adjusted way to get $50,000 per year. So that's in today's dollars. And we're going to inflate that if retirement is in the future. And once you start taking withdrawals, we're going to inflate the amount that you take each year so that you continue to keep your purchasing power over time. So we said you're 61 and you need to go until 67. So we're going to say there are 6 years until retirement and just leave the rest of these assumptions. Why don't we make that a 30-year retirement, because you might be in good health, and we can come up with a lump sum that you would eventually need in retirement. In this case, that's about $611,000. Then you can figure out, based on what you might already have saved up for retirement, how much you need to save each year so that you can hopefully reach that goal. Again, none of this guarantees that everything will work perfectly, but this is a way to estimate what your numbers might look like. It might also be smart to triple check those numbers with a financial professional or with other sources, and you can even run that by with a rule of thumb. So if you're familiar with the 4% rule, which is a bad name for it because it's not a rule, it's a research finding and nobody actually follows it perfectly, but we can say Based on that, is it reasonable to expect that you could take withdrawals over 30 years? Back to our handy calculator, you're going to be withdrawing around $22,000 per year. We're going to divide that by the amount you want to have saved up at the beginning of retirement, around $611,000, and we get a 3.6% withdrawal rate. That's below the 4%, so that's looking better than it being above 4%. Then you need to decide if 3.6% is too high or too low or about reasonable. Again, none of this guarantees that you won't run out of money or that everything will work perfectly, but what we can do is improve your chances of success. A couple of things that can come up are, for example, healthcare spending shocks. So if you need long-term care, that can derail a retirement plan. So you want to think about that. Should you use insurance? Should you think about home equity as a safety net in that case? We've all seen those scary statistics that show you need to have a couple $100,000 budgeted for healthcare in retirement. But if you look at that yearly, and that is for a couple, by the way, if you look at that yearly, the typical person might spend something like $5,000 to $10,000 per year, more on the lower end at the beginning of retirement when you're on Medicare, and it moves up to the higher end as your healthcare costs increase. But if you can budget for that and spend that out of your cash flow, then it isn't quite so bad. That said, a long-term care event can really be problematic. Now, what about taxes? We haven't even talked about that yet. So you've got an income of $50,000. It comes from Social Security and withdrawals. Let's just assume that all of that money is in a pre-tax retirement account. So you haven't done any Roth, and all of that money might add to your taxable income. The good news is that at a $50,000 level, the taxes are relatively small. So this is an oversimplified calculator here, but we're just going to walk through it. You're a single person, no dependents, and we've got your taxable IRA distributions. There's that $22,000 or so, and your Social Security of about $28,000, and some of that is going to be taxable, so they're looking at about $28,000 is showing up in your AGI. But you're going to have a standard deduction, single person, this year. Of course, this is going to change from year to year, so check with your CPA. That brings your income down fairly low, and then the actual amount you need to pay in taxes is less than $2,000 using this calculator. So that might be a surprisingly small amount. The fact is that if you can keep your income at a reasonable level, you can actually manage your taxes pretty nicely. So now you know how to do some of these calculations for yourself. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, please leave a quick thumbs up. Thanks and take care.